The Fall was written probably 1990-ish. Robbie wrote the main riff, certainly, and I'm thinking the rest too, though the verse riff sounds very Johnish to me. Long discussions, and I do mean long, between Rob and John about the drum beat of the chorus, First We Feel, etc. It had to be just so, apparently. First We Feel, Then We Fall, from the very end of Finnegan's Wake, which you probably already knew, baby references. I've often wondered if the Talking Heads' Stay Up Late from Little Creatures may have been an influence on this song. Unlike me, Rob liked Little Creatures a lot, so maybe there was some indirect influence in there somewhere. Like now, it seems like what should be a 3-minute song stretched out to 5 minutes. Ha ha ha. And then he has to say this on Putting It All in Order. Me trying to cross Black Flag with wire, sorry. About the moment when all your existential constructs in yourself are simply no longer adequate, keeping your emotional well-being in check. Nervous Breakdown meets Lowdown. Bonus revelation, the guitar solo, such as it is, was me attempting a My War Side 2 Greg Ginn style of playing.
No Fucking was written by Rob after No Sex. How much after? I couldn't say for sure, but within a year or two, likely. I can't recall if it was written as 2-piece or 3-piece. I'm thinking 2-piece. One thing I do know is that for years it was included in our set as a song before Predators. The two always went together. We tried recording Predators a couple times, including for Sex Mad, but for whatever reason, it seemed to fall flat in the studio. Live was another matter entirely, and so, on record, at least, No Fucking began to lead its own little life. And then this is about my roommates turning into a monster, referenced in... Now it's dark, I guess. I believe I've told you this before, but Roommate is my favorite NoMeansNo song from the main riff's beginning, which really isn't the beginning.
Holy shit.
We should talk about this someday, Michelle. Through the twisted tale of sharing living arrangements up until the he's raising his hand against me climax, it's Rob and John at their best. And as a bonus, Robbie puts down what I think is his best guitar playing ever. Fear and Loathing, Sexual Politics, a B-movie horror title, Roommate has it all for me. A claustrophobic slice of everyday life drama, and I should also mention, it continues John's tradition of sound effects found in various NoMeansNo recordings, for better and for worse. In this case, sublime.
I Need You. We had 2 possible running orders for 0+2 when we were finished recording, and one included I Need You and Lost. Would we have chosen that order? I think I Need You would have been the centerpiece of the record. I really like Rob's lyrics, but the funny thing is that I always imagine the word you being used in a somewhat different way than meaning an actual person. I saw and still see the I, or self, as needing the other. In other words, the I requires a you in order to function. That you could take many forms. I think this is all getting a bit being and nothingness, isn't it? Ha 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 ha. On a much more down-to-earth note, the volume jump in the middle of the song when the big guitar chords come in was directly inspired by a couple of songs on Neil Young's Freedom LP, specifically Don't Cry and El Dorado, around 4 minutes, 40 seconds. As for the now, ow, 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 wow vocal guitar thing, I think Rob came up with this vocal echo effect first, and then I used that to create my guitar part using the Roland DA30 analog chorus echo unit. This got used in very few NoMeansNo songs, Self-Pity most famously, Colder far less so, but was used extensively during NoMeansNo early 4-track era, as well as on the first Neos and first Infamous Scientists EPs. All over everything. Also live, I had to adjust the echo speed to approximate the correct tempo first before we started playing so John could hear it. No doubt on live recordings, you'll hear me fucking around with it and giving John a sample to hear. From then on, it was just praying it wouldn't go too far out tempo-wise. And on Brother Rat, what Slayde says, at some point, Rob said he had an idea for a song called Brother Rat, which, being the musical thief I immediately stole. I went home and wrote the song. Rob and John liked what I'd come up with, so that was that. Brother Rat was born. I'm trying to think about how Rat and Slayde got paired up. If I'm recalling this correctly, Slayde was written totally separately, and the two just seemed to work together tempo-wise. But for me, anyways, the two songs are about distinctly different subjects. Rat being about male-male relationships in the straight world and all the camaraderie, mistrust, and loyalty betrayal that entails.
Mistrust.
While Slayde being about,
Mistrust.
well, about all those things you guys talked about. Oh, yeah. In answer to one of your questions, yes, we did often go off script, but only at scripted times. Ha 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 ha.
Okay, here's some more nonsense for y'all. Love Thang, as Matthew rather astutely pointed out, Love Thang is indeed a musical take on the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan by John Hinckley in 1981, spurred on by Hinckley's obsession with Jodie Foster at the time. In retrospect, it seems quite crude, lyrically speaking, but I kind of like that about it. I called it Love Thang, but it likely started life as Love Thing. No idea why I would have changed it. And speaking the word thing, I tried to use it in a few different ways in the song. For example, the idea of love as a kind of physical object, but also sarcastically in a sort of hippiest way. You know, it's a love thing, man. Use it
You don't understand.
I really have a thing for him, as well, more literally, the thing being Hinckley's gun. Or worse, real love is scary. Not much to say about the music, but looking back on it now, the break in the middle foreshadows the anti-solo in Two Lips, a sort of conceptual ode to minimalism with an annoying single note and beat on the offbeat, which goes on interminably until you want to pull your hair out. Live, this was always tricky because naturally your brain, after a few bars, puts the offbeat on the onbeat. So when John finally came back in with the rest of the rhythm, we really had to concentrate. Otherwise, everything went bass-ackwards. Oh yeah, and for you time signature freaks, the majority of the song is in 6/4. Joy. And speaking of offbeats, right, this song was released long after I was in the band, but it had its roots during the 0+2=1 era, as I believe you mentioned. I can imagine that almost everyone who hears it gets the first beat wrong. The whole song's in 4/4, and the very first note/beat in the first part falls on the second eighth note. If you can grasp that in your head, not an easy task, it should be said, then you will hear how the song was meant to be heard. Wormies. I think I went to Richards Records in Victoria and bought this when it came out. I used to have a copy that Rob autographed, long lost, alas, with Andy, thanks for the $2. Love, Rob. I seem to remember that Rob borrowed a couple dollars from me for something that I can't remember what. Haha. Now it's dark, very Hansons-ish. A tribute to Blue Velvet by Rob with a bunch of memorable quotes from the movie. I was never a big fan of this one, it has to be said. To my ears, it sounded like it's continuously on the verge of breaking out, but never quite does. A change of key or bridge in the middle may have helped. I don't know. I don't think it was ever really a contender for the 0+2=1 album. It was recorded only as a demo for the record, but not included in the bunch of tracks we decided to lay down at Profile Studios. I just didn't want to get lost. I can imagine that almost everyone who hears it gets the first beat wrong. The whole song is in 4/4, and the very first note/beat in the first bar falls on the second eighth note.
The Tower. The only thing I can think of to mention about the Tower is that during the Wrong Records sessions, when we had finished laying down the bed tracks, Rob pointed out that he thought the song didn't seem to have enough weight, sonically speaking. It may have seemed a little fast as well. So someone, I can't recall who exactly, suggested slowing down the instrumental backing slightly. This achieved two things. One, the song was more plodding, and two, the tone of all the instruments were deeper. In the days of analog, this was as simple as turning a knob. We fiddled around until we were happy with how it sounded. Finally, we added the vocals, not slowed down. Of course, because we slowed down the tape, the key of the song changed. The Tower is in the key of E. With the altered tape speed, it ended up being a tiny bit sharper than E flat. Brainless Wonder, which follows the Tower on Wrong, is also in the key of E, but at the regular tape speed.
Humans. Yes, it's a John song, likely written and rehearsed in 1991. I don't think it was ever played live while I was still in the band. Rob's middle vocal bit was written and added after I had left. But when I joined in for a few numbers with NoMeansNo in Amsterdam in 2004, I played along on this song. Forget Your Life. Rob considered this a breakthrough song for him in terms of songwriting. And yes, Matthew, you are correct in suggesting that the song actually has a positive message. Rob used to explain it much like you did. that there's a sort of freedom to be found in shedding your precious concepts of yourself and how you believe your life is. Forget it. Be no thing. On the 2-piece 4-track version, by far the best version in my opinion, you can hear John's Roland Strings keyboard, maybe an RS-202, and Rob playing his black Strat through a Boss DS1 distortion pedal in combination with the mighty Roland Chorus Echo unit. Not so much to say about the second recording of Forget Your Life. We were happy enough with how it turned out, and that we got it out to a bigger public. The 7-inch was long out of print. But I don't think any of us were under the illusion that it was better than the original. And though you probably already knew this already, there is no bass guitar in the song on either version, thus belonging to the list of twin guitar NoMeansNo songs, including Revenge, Joyful Reunion, He Learned How to Bleed, etc. Tired of Waiting. Lyrically speaking, this is kind of a first cousin to Stocktaking in some ways. In Tired of Waiting, you have biding time, wasting time dilemma, while in Stocktaking, you have being sick and tired versus being happy enough. As well, they are both assessments on the state of failing relationships. John is really the star in this one. I don't think I realized when I was in the band just how remarkable he was. The guitar solo was meant to be a very happy melodic line, but sounded like it was played by someone who wasn't altogether right in the head. I had Fred Firth's solo from the Residents' Moisture on their commercial album as a kind of template, though in the end, didn't sound much like that at all.
David the Nothing. For a song I love so much, I have surprisingly little to say about it. One of my favorite NoMeansNo songs to play. Lots of movement, dancing, and general jumping around when we played this one. The main riff during the verses reminds me of a whole lot of Change by Killing Joke. Fun fact, way back in 1981 at Emma's house, hi Emma, when my pal Kev Lee and I met John for the first time, I noticed him in a room off of the hallway, stereo cranked up, dancing on his own to Change. My favorite lyric? We talked about things like assured mutual destruction and emotional responsibility. Ha ha ha! Music-wise, despite sounding quite chaotic at times, the David thing has a very set structure. But at the end of the song, we got to play around quite a bit and improvise to our heart's delight for a while before the song wrapped up. I remember Rob teaching me the notes for the tail end of the middle bridge and making a point of the fact that he wanted us to both to play the same note, same octave, alternating back and forth between two different strings. He explained that the tone on the two strings are slightly different from each other down to the different string thickness and tension. He was right. We were often very fussy, anally retentive, about specific little things like that. We couldn't quite figure out a natural way to end the song that sounded half decent, so we went to the absurd choice, a simple ascending chromatic scale. Silly, yes, but it worked not only as a way to finish the song, but as a handy way in a live setting to lead into the following song in the set. P.S. The translation in Dutch, courtesy of Ingrid, was Dit dag das alles in niets opging. Obsessed. A John song written on keyboards. This is a real mother of a song for Rob and I to learn. What is basic fingering on a keyboard is quite awkward on a guitar fretboard. Add to that yet another silent first beat of the main riff, and you can imagine it took a bit of time before Rob and I got it down securely. You may or may not know this, but the song originally had lyrics written and sung by John. Not sure why they got dropped, but maybe we thought the song was stronger without them. As for the subject matter of the words, let's just say, think Sex Mad 2. Once, when we played in a squat in Oslo, we were told that the old Norwegian king at the time was very ill and in the local hospital. Despite being a monarch, he was generally loved. So when we started our set, we came up with the idea to play super quietly for this first song so as to not disturb the resting king. And the first song was Obsessed. So we played it just as fast as always, but as quietly as humanly possible.
Dead Souls, an early zombie song, one of the original Hanson Brothers song. The funny thing is that it doesn't sound like a Ramones song at all, far more a hardcore vibe. Dead Souls and Teresa Give Me That Knife were like cousins. I can't imagine we would have thought about including both on one release. And so one went on The Day Everything while the other ended up on Small Parch, just as the Day Everything EP Live, we played Dead Souls straight after the day everything for quite a long time. Life in Hell. Did I not write about this one already? And as an aside, too bad, because it's that good.
Yeah.
Alas, not an ode to Matt Groening's fine comic series. Music was written by me in the living room of the Rat's Nest in Victoria while I waited for Rob and John to go through their two-piece stuff in the basement. After I'd gone down to join them a little ways into a three-piece practice, I announced that I had music for a new song. I didn't tell them I just made it up 15 minutes earlier. Ha 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 ha. The main riff has a distinct stop-start feel, much like the break to Stocktaking, as if you cut off the tail end of a long musical phrase and then loop it. Rob added the lyrics a short time afterwards. I'll leave the interpretation of the words to others. I will just say that I felt like it had a little too much of "Milady" tone for my liking. Okay, the last one here, Valley of the Blind. This song has a really nice shuffle going on, courtesy of John's drums and my complimentary guitar part. Robbie's bass anchors the main riff with a steady run of double eighth notes, like I Think You Know and Now. Rob and I trade off vocal duties on the verses on this one. We were interested in doing something different with the vocal and musical arrangements on this album, so it didn't end up sounding just like Wrong 2. Trading vocals was relatively easy to accomplish and lots of fun as well. Lyrically, Rob's in his comfort zone, playing around with the whole nothing thing once again, a theme that is all over 0 plus 2.
Blinding Light. One of my least favorite NoMeansNo songs during my tenure in the band. Shock! Horror! While John is amazing on the drums as per usual, and Rob sounds fantastic playing the shit out of his bass, I thought the actual music sounded a bit like a throwaway Motorhead song that didn't even qualify as a B-side. And while I'm not a big fan of Joyful Reunion either, I think it does the whole double time, wallow, distorted guitars, and pounding drums things much, much better than Blinding Light. Perhaps a very obscure note, but whenever Rob's saying, God is great, in my head, I always wanted to hear, God is great, God is good, let us thank him for our food. With food made to rhyme with good. Yeah, exactly. Big Dick. The return of a bass and drums two-piece song on a NoMeansNo album after a short absence on Small Parts, Day Everything. I'm thinking it was written quite soon after Mama, but I may be mistaken. Rob sang it originally. Then, when he lost his voice for a while, I took over vocal duties. After Rob got his voice back, we'd done it so long with me singing that it stayed that way. I love this song. I would have gladly watched Rob and John do this without me, just the two of them. That said, it was always super fun to sing and dance around too, if you can call what I did dancing. The lyrics are top-notch, funny, pointed, and very much in line with the early feminist themes of the band. For a brief period, while Rob was singing this in the early mid-'80s, I played timbales alongside the brothers on stage. There's no live video or audio tapes that document this that I know of, but I think John added timbales to the studio version for Wrong some years later. The other song timbales got used for was a long-lost Babble to the Rabble.
Victim's Choice. A John instrumental written, in regards to the title at the very least, with a wink to our buddies Victim's family. A real showcase for all of John's musical talents apart from his singing. Incredible. Super proggy punk, or is that punky prog? Lots of mathy goodness to get our teeth into.
Mathy.
Rob plays guitar on the little deedly. Lead break and all that quick finger work was and still is beyond my capabilities. As evidence on the 0 plus 2 equals 1.5 release, it was a strong candidate for the medley of songs on side 2 of the final album release. Sadly, it didn't make the cut. Stop It. One of the first songs that I wrote for NoMeansNo. The music was meant to be unrelenting and brutal, complementing the lyrics. The subject of the words is refusal, the power of no, as it were. Not in any kind of philosophical sense, but in the literal sense. No compromise, no discussion. Every day I start to ooze. Cat, sex, and Nazis' cousin. As I remember, the music and lyrics are Robbie's, but John added the cheesy 80s synth sounds during the blue, black and blue, and red are the colors of every day section. Rob wrote and played the guitar solo. 2. Some shocking digital distortion on the vocals as a bonus for all you picky audiophiles. Nerds. If I could go back in time and wave a magic wand, I think I'd take this off of 0+2 and make a 12-inch with Every Day I Start to Ooze and Cat, Sex, and Nazis. Then I Need You or Lost could go on 0+2.
Cat, Sex, and Nazis. Rob wrote the main riff while John wrote the, quote, zombie bridge music. The zombie words were the basis of a much earlier NoMeansNo song called, wait for it, Zombies. I have a couple of mid-80s set lists with Zombies listed as an encore song. I don't remember it being an actual song per se, but rather a catchy drum riff that repeated over and over with the zombie chant sitting on top of it. Cat, Sex, and Nazis started with just Rob's 2-bar bass part along with his lyrics. One of us at practice saw an opportunity to add the old Zombies chant to change up Cat, Sex, and Nazis, albeit with a different drum part. I think you know, I like this one a lot. Another 0+2 song with the vocals that trade off. It reminds me of a car with the wheels beginning to come off as it races out of control. Playing the song for us was not so much a groove as it was bloody hard work. When we played it live, I don't think it ever came across to the audience very well. Nothing funny to see here.
Self-pity. In my top 5 NoMeansNo song list. A good transition from the 2-piece sound to the 3-piece sound without things going all rock.
Right.
Some of my favorite Rob lyrics ever, too. Really, really basic, but saying a lot. Pre-hyperbole, NoMeansNo. The original recording with Rob's beautiful pre-nodes voice is the best version. As for the guitar solo, it was always fun to do, particularly with the on-off foot switch. My own personal form of therapy. Funny because I often hesitated to get too noisy on the guitar during my time in Infamous Scientist, but with NoMeansNo, it just kind of came out naturally. The end of all things. Not sure exactly how Rob and I ended up switching instruments. Perhaps Rob was showing me the guitar part and I picked up the bass. We'd seen others do it, specifically the Gang of Four, and it seemed like a cool idea to shake things up. The recording also features Rob's old archtop guitar. I remember being a little suspicious of the chorus. I was worried it was a bit too anthemic, a little too close to holding your Bic lighter up in the air rock. And then finally, Oh No, Bruno. So John. The best Hanson song that wasn't a Hanson song. Or was it? The subject of the song, as well as the cribbage references, has already been talked about at length, so not much to add here. It's kind of an oddball on Wrong to me, but in the best possible way. I really like the fact that it's there. For a couple of minutes, all the angst and dread that permeates all the other songs on the album is gone, vanished. I can't imagine it being on Sex Matter Small Parts.
2 lips, 2 lungs, and 1 tongue. Of course, this song is very influenced by Wire, but the lyrics may have been subconsciously been inspired by XTC's No Language in Our Lungs, or could just be coincidence. The hook in the song is a dropped quarter note at the end of each chorus. Would there have just been a steady 4-beat all the way through the chorus, the song would have been infinitely more straightforward and less catchy. The, quote, anti-solo, end quote, was like the break in Love Thang, a way to interpret the musical proceedings and at the same time serve as a bit of a poke at complicated solos in general. It should be said that, not being the most technically proficient guitarist on that particular front, I often had to find other more extract ways to add a certain texture to a song. The end is not only ripped off of Gang of Four's Return of the Gift, but also in some way the ending of Infamous Scientist, Noise and Rhythm. The next song he discusses is Stocktaking. This is an old story told many times, but here it goes again. The lyrics are about the end of a relationship. Weeks, months wondering if and when it's all going to end, literally taking stock of your situation. I wanted to write something loud, yet danceable too. The original title was punk rock, quote unquote, with the word split between the two stabbing F major bar chords. The bridge of the song was taken from Devo's Snowball plus James Brown's Sex Machine. I had been listening to both Freedom of Choice and the greatest comp hits of James at the time. I remember having a discussion with John about how the song ended. I thought it would be best if it just came up to an unexpected stop, like many relationships. John was a bit disappointed that we couldn't carry on, quote, in the groove for a while. Oh, and as for when the first beat falls in the song, don't get me started.